there. Today I'm talking to you about tax, tip, and subtotals. So, these are things that you're going to need to know when it comes to purchasing items. And the way I'm going to show this to you is through an order from Texas Roadhouse. So, I've already selected the items that I would like. So, I've got a cactus blossom, a sirloin, steak, and then a Coca Cola. And so my job is, if I were to purchase these things, the very first thing that you're going to see on a receipt or that you're going to need to know about is your subtotal. And the subtotal is what we're going to base our tax and tip off of for our meal. So the subtotal is simply taking the menu prices or the amount that something costs in a store and adding up all the items that you get. So in this case, I'm going to move this on over. In this case, my amount was $5.99, $10.99. So I'm adding them together, and $1.99. Everybody likes to do those 99s. So together, my subtotal is $18.97. So to kind of illustrate this, I'm going to show you another. Here's an anchor chart kind of showing this. So again, the subtotal is the amount of all the menu items added up before the tip is added on. Okay? And again, that's what we're going to base our tax and tip off of. Now, for my Texas Roadhouse order, which is $18.97, the first thing that we're going to do is see the tax in this case is going to be 6% of my subtotal. And the reason for that is because in Louisville or in Kentucky, the sales tax is 6%. So I'm just going to write this over here. So I know for my tax, I am now going to be figuring out that it is going to be 6% of, which means multiply. So 6% of $18.97. So again, of means multiply. If I'm going to find my tax, I'm simply going to take this total here. Of means multiply, so I'm going to multiply $18.97 times 6%. And I'm also going to remember that 6% as a decimal is actually 0.06. The way I've remembered that is that you take your percent and you divide the number by 100. So 6 divided by 100 is 6/100ths. So I'm going to come over here and do that. So multiply that by 6%. And I'm going to get a tax of, okay, that's weird. It says 1.1382. And I said that's weird because this is money, isn't it? And you're never going to see a sales tax that looks like this. What we have to do as the mathematician is we're going to round our tax to the nearest cent. So I know the nearest cent is where this 3 is, right? So this would be like $1.13, except we're rounding. So I'm going to look at that number back here, and this 8 is telling me that we're going to go ahead and round this 3 up to a 4, right? So my actual tax is going to be $1.14. Okay. Now, one thing you might also want to know is that if, let's say, so here's a little anchor chart. It's showing again how to find 6% or the tax of a number. But let's say I have the cost and I know how much tax they're charging me for that amount. How would I find the percent tax then? Okay. So the way we would do this, take a look at this, right? It's going to be a little bit different. And let me kind of show you. I can actually show you with this example here. Let's scroll down, because if we scroll down, we actually find they have applied a tax here. And it is kind of what we found, right? But let's say we didn't know that the tax was 6%. If I wanted to figure out, well, what was the tax that they taxed on my food? Think of it this way. We're trying to think of, remember, what number or what percent right, was multiplied by my subtotal, which in this case is $18.97. And we know that the answer is $1.14. So if we're trying to figure that part out, we just kind of have to remember, well, how do we find this number? How are we going to solve this? I know that this times this equals this product. So if I really want to find out what this is, I'm going to have to take $1.14. I can take the $1.14 and divide it by the $18.97. And if I do that, then I'm going to get the percent, well, at least the decimal version. So if I come over here, let's try that out and see if we get the same thing. What $1.14 was our sales tax amount. I'm going to divide it by $18.97. And I get, okay, so here's what I get. And again, so I know that this is equal to 0.06000000, right? So this is a decimal version of percent. So if I want the percent, I actually have to take that number and multiply it by 100. And that gives me a 6% tax, right? So I know that that was a 6% tax added on the $1.14. Okay. So now we're left with our tip. All right. So they automatically have added a tip on here. A lot of places do that now. Like this was set up as a carryout order. But typically, if you go to a restaurant, they don't put a tip on automatically. What they normally do is they'll give you your bill at the end of a meal, and you have to decide how much you're going to tip that the server, in this case, a server, right? So the standard amount is between 10 to 20%. Now, I typically do a 20% tax. So if I wanted to know how much I was going to add on to my tip to give the server 20%, I'm going to basically find, well, what's 20% of $18.97? Okay. And to do that, there are a couple different ways, but let's just focus on doing 20% of the subtotal. Remember, you always want to tip on the subtotal, not the actual total at the bottom, because well, then you're tipping on top of tax. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my $18.97 and I'm going to multiply it by 20%, which I know is 0.2, right? Because we divide 20% by 100, gives us the decimal of 0.2 or 0.20 of means multiply. So when I do that, I'm getting $3 so it says 3.794. So for this, again, this isn't an actual tip because it's not in dollars and cents, right? We've got this extra number. So we're actually going to round our cents place here using the number behind it. So the 4 is actually telling me that this is going to stay the same. So the actual tip is going to be $3.79 for a 20% tip. This tip is actually a 10% tip. Okay. And a little trick for finding the tip, a lot of people, including myself, first of all, what a lot of people do is they will, instead of using a calculator like this, I typically don't. And what I normally do is I would look at that number, the subtotal, and I know that 10% is really just moving that decimal over. So I know 10% is 1.89, in this case, 7, right? And so I personally, if I'm finding a tip, I'm going to round that to $1.90 in my mind anyway, because basically it's easier for me to do the math in my head. And then I know if 10% is $1.90 and I normally tip 20%, then I just have to double my $1.90, right? So again, if I'm actually tipping in a restaurant, I'm probably just going to say $4 because $1.90 is close to $2 and 2 doubled is 4, right? But if you want to be precise about it, you simply double this, right? So this would end up being $3.80. That is a zero, right? Because I doubled $1.90. And that is a trick on finding the tips for 20%. Okay. So, of course, there's just one last step when you are ordering food. You get your tax and your tip. You're ending up with a total. And the real total of all of your food is going to be what your subtotal was, plus your tip, plus your tax. So it's adding all of these things together, and that's the actual amount we would be paying Texas Roadhouse for the tax and tip for my meal. So that's it. That's how you find taxes and tips. You can always go to your anchor charts and video section and look at the tax and tip for the anchor chart. So this is showing how to find the tax of 6% or percent of a number, or to go the opposite way. And this one is kind of showing you, okay, if this is what you ordered, here's your subtotal before tax and tip. You add on your tax, and here's how you find that, right? You take your subtotal, multiply it by 6%, and round it. You're going to get your tax. Here's for a 15% tip. Again, we take our subtotal, multiply it by 15% as a decimal, and then round our answer to the nearest cent. And then the final total is everything, the subtotal, the tax, the tip added together. Good luck.